look, I'll be glad to explain why I'm a Republican. Number one, I want lower taxes. Number two, I want conservative judges on the court.
With Trump.
Number three, I want a better economy for American workers. Number four, I want a president who cares what's going on in middle America, which the Democratic Party has completely and totally abandoned. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have run this country into the ground. I want a center-right government, and most of the time they're going to do what I want to do, and all of the time she's not, and that's why I'm a Republican today. There's like virtually no politician alive that I think any other American voter agrees with all the time, and it's my right to agree and disagree, and it's also my right to vote for a direction for the government that's basically in line with where I want to be. There's two people running,
What
Trump
direction?
and Harris. Harris, none of the time is going to do what I want. And Trump, most of the time is going to do what I want. And millions of Republicans are going to make that choice, whether they come from the Romney, Bush, McConnell, Reagan, whatever wing of the Republican Party. Millions of Republicans are making that calculation today. And the reason you're upset is because Harris is struggling, Trump is surging, and you know your party's in trouble.
Scott Jennings over at CNN dropping some truth bombs on a woke left-wing nut. All his voters are leaving the Democrat Party in droves in the key swing state of Pennsylvania. We're going to see the stunning defection among an increasing number of Democrats who are leaving the party in the Keystone State and voting for Trump. And we're seeing it in the numbers. This is going to absolutely make your night. Greetings, everyone. It is I on live stream Monday night, a very special live stream Monday night. It is our latest edition of our ongoing series, Operation Ground Zero, Win Pennsylvania. The winner of Pennsylvania wins the White House, and we are keeping ongoing tabs of this key swing state, making sure you know everything you need to know going into November 5th. As always, I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. As we do every single Monday night, we have got our exclusive backstage live private Q&A. If you'd like to join our private virtual platform and ask me your questions, just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. You sign up for any level of support that you like. You'll be given a backstage pass to ask me anything you like, as well as fellowship online with some of the coolest patriots in the world. So once again, that is fight.turleytalks.com/join. Join any level that you like. You will be given a link to our own private virtual platform where you can ask me all your questions tonight. And let's dive into what's really going on, particularly with Pennsylvania, because there's lots of movement going on in this key swing state of Pennsylvania right now. First and foremost, if you don't know, today is the last day to register if you are a Pennsylvania resident, to register to vote. And so if you're a Pennsylvania resident, make sure you check your registration. This is something Scott Pressler is saying over and over again each and every day. Check your registration status. If you already think you're registered, check. You got to check, because a lot of people find out, well, wait a minute, something happened to my registration. I'm not registered anymore. Now I can't vote. So make sure first and foremost that you're registered. And if not, and you're in Pennsylvania, make sure to register right now. Don't listen to me. Do not listen to the sultry sound of my voice. No, we need every single vote in the Keystone State. As of now, the latest voter registration numbers just dropped today, and they are absolutely stunning. We hit a milestone with voter registrations. Many of you know there's been massive voter registration efforts. Thank you, Scott Pressler, in Pennsylvania. The Democrats have had a registration advantage forever. At one time, just a few years ago, it was up over 1 million voters. The Democrats had a registration advantage just a few years ago of over 1 million. That voter registration advantage has now officially fallen to below 300,000. It's now 297,824. Now, keep in mind, Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 when it had about a 600,000 Democrat registration advantage. A lot of working class Democrats who hadn't changed their affiliation back then voted for Trump. They did it again in 2020. Now, that registration today that registration back in 2016 is just a fraction. I'm sorry. Yes, I got that right. My math is terrible. The registration today, the registration advantage of Democrats is just a fraction of the last time Trump won the state. In just 1 week, this is a neat stat. In just 1 week, this past week alone, Republican registrations outnumbered Democrats by 15,000. We cut their lead by 15,000 in a single week. That's more than 2,000 a day. Remember, 66 of Pennsylvania's 67 counties have all turned to the right in terms of voter registration. And now finally, the legacy media is taking notice. Just 2 weeks before the election, now they decide to take notice. Take a look at the latest from Newsweek. Democrats see 103% increase in Pennsylvania voters leaving the party. In effect, what that means is that for every one voter that leaves the Republican Party, 2 voters have left the Democrat Party. This year, over 50,000 registered Democrats changed their affiliation to independent or non-affiliated, whereas 61,000 switched to Republicans, for a total of 113,000 voters that have left the Democrats in Pennsylvania in this year alone. And may I remind you that Biden barely squeaked by in 2020 with 80,000 votes? More Democrats have left the Democratic Party in this year alone than voted for Biden's margin of victory back in 2020. Now, at the same time we're getting this registration data, we're now seeing the fruit of it in the early ballot requests and returns in Pennsylvania. Now, take a look at this. This is from Cliff Maloney. Of Pennsylvania Chase. I just interviewed Cliff earlier today. I think we should have the interview. I think it should be up tomorrow or Wednesday. He's very, very excited about what's going on the ground in Pennsylvania. And by the way, you guys are amazing. I'm going to release, when you watch that interview, I release the fundraising totals that the Pennsylvania Chase got alone from this audience. And Cliff told me he's never seen anything like it before. You guys are amazing. And so anyway, you'll see he gave you guys a huge thank you. So make sure you check that out. I believe it's airing on Wednesday. But just check back on the channel. You'll see the interview with Cliff. He was so excited. You have no idea how you alone, this audience alone, is affecting Pennsylvania right now. And again, coming from Cliff, he said he's never seen another audience do this. You're going to love it. So take a look at this, gang. It looks like we hit the magic number of 33% of return ballots. Now, back in 2020, it was more or less an 80-20 split. Democrats accounted for 80% of return ballots, whereas Republicans accounted for about 20% of return ballots. And the Pennsylvania Chase has had as their goal to get Republicans up to the 33% mark. Based on their calculations, if Republicans make up 33% of the return ballots, according to PA Chase, the Democrats have literally no firewall going into November. So remember, back in 2020, they had a 1 million ballot firewall, right? 1 million ballots going into election day, a 1 million ballot advantage. We saw something very similar with Fetterman. He had about an 800,000 ballot advantage over and against Oz. That's gone. That's good. They still have an advantage. They always will, because Democrats come out early and vote in Pennsylvania. But now they'll be lucky if they get half of what they had in 2020. And remember, again, even with that 1 million vote firewall, they only won by 80,000 votes. So again, it's important to remember that every state is different here. And for whatever reason, Pennsylvania voters, particularly Republican voters, they tend to come out on election day. They don't do mail-in ballots. I don't know why. That's just their deal. In contrast to, for example, Arizona voters. So what we're seeing in Arizona right now is the Republicans are crushing it in Arizona. I mean, Democrats they're going through a collective concussion right now. They have no idea. It's same with Nevada, by the way, but I digress. In Arizona, the reason why it's so important that the Republicans are blowing the Democrats out of the water right now with the early voting is because literally 89% of Arizona voters vote early. 89, a lot of that's in-person voting, but 89% of Arizona voters vote early. So this is why it's so amazing that Republicans right now in Arizona are crushing Democrats by 8 points. At this point in 2020, just by contrast, at this point in 2020, it was the Democrats up 5. Democrats were up 5. And again, with that +5 advantage going into Election Day, they went on to win by just 10,000 votes. Okay, we are now seeing a 13-point swing to the Republicans in the state where 89% of the residents vote early. In Pennsylvania, it's the opposite. 70% of voters vote on Election Day. 70% vote on Election Day. So what the Democrats want to do is they want to do exactly what they did in 2020. They want to amass a huge firewall of banked votes, early mail-in ballot votes, which back in 2020 was over 1 million. They had just over, I think, 1.7 million mail-in ballots sent in as compared to Republicans 600,000. So it was even more than 1 million. It was more like 1.1 million or so. Again, every 0.1 matters when you win by 80,000 votes, right? So it's basically 3-1 Democrat. And again, keep in mind, Biden only won by 80,000 votes with that 1.1 million mail-in vote firewall. As things stand, their firewall right now is barely 300,000 votes. Their firewall is barely 300,000 votes. It is nothing in comparison to what they amassed in 2020 and 2022. And given the way Republicans have been out registering Democrats, frankly, I don't see where they're going to get the votes. Not to mention the fact that many of these voters, thank you, Scott Pressler again, and thank you, Cliff Maloney, are no prop to low prop voters. So low propensity voters who only voted in one of the last 4 elections, no propensity voters who had not voted in the last 4 elections. Those are the ones that are particularly Trumpy. And those are the ones, according to these ballot chasers, who are coming out and voting en masse for Trump. Now, as confirmation that this is a genuine, bona fide move towards Trump, you may have seen this. This is very interesting. The Cook Political Report did in many ways the unthinkable today. This is incredible. Cook moved the Pennsylvania Senate race from leans Democrat to toss-up. It's anybody's race now. And why that is virtually unthinkable is because it involves the longtime Democrat incumbent Bob Casey. He's been a senator for freaking 20 years now. Ever since I've been in the area, he's been the senator, and I've been here 20 years. The Republican Dave McCormick is now either tied or actually taking the lead in this race. Make no mistake, this is huge. Casey was beating McCormick by double digits just literally weeks ago. But again, just like we saw with Glenn Youngkin, who came from behind, double digits behind Terry McAuliffe, and all of a sudden in the final, third week or so of October, all of a sudden he just begins to surge. And he just catches McAuliffe totally off guard. He has McAuliffe on his heels the whole time, pushing all this kind of woke stuff that McAuliffe was supporting, particularly in the schools in like Loudoun County. And he was just he just crushed it and surged to a 2-point win in Virginia. Well, we're seeing something very similar with McCormick. But again, in many ways, the Democrats only have themselves to blame because I think a lot of these polls, these early polls, they're just response bias polls. They don't really show us reality. They're not showing what's really going on among the electorate. Remember, response bias polls are there to give Democrats money and momentum. Response bias polls are there to give Democrats money and momentum. Response bias polls, number one, always favor the Democrat. You've noticed that, right? When's the last time? I mean, outside of like Texas or Oklahoma or Idaho or something, when's the last time, particularly in swing states, have you seen a Republican in the lead early on in the election? Like never, virtually never. These are the only thing I could think of is in Maryland. Larry Hogan, they were giving him like 20-point leads over the Democrat field because no Democrat had been chosen as of yet. And they were, I think they were using that to pump money to get the Republican Senatorial Committee to pump money into Larry Hogan futilely, because there's no way. I'm sorry, Larry Hogan I can't see how he's possibly wins Maryland. I mean, Kamala's going to win Maryland by 30 points, okay? We don't vote split ticket. We're not going to vote for Kamala and then vote for Larry Hogan. That's just not going to happen. Just because you're successful as governor does not make you successful as a national candidate, right? Just ask Scott Walker that. Just ask Ron DeSantis that, for heaven's sakes. So anyway, generally speaking, these puff polls, response bias polls, always favor the Democrats because they're there to give the Democrat money and momentum. So these polls are put together by a left-leaning polling industry that provides the supposed data needed for donors to write big checks. And they're designed to create a narrative that everybody who's anybody is going to be voting for this Democrat. So the whole purpose of these response bias polls that inordinately survey reliable Democrat constituents are to fund and to fabricate, right? They're to give the Democrat candidate money and momentum. And to the shock of the establishment, in 2024, it's not working. It's not working. This is the real shock for the establishment, the legacy media, the weaponized lawfare, big tech, federal bureaucrats, deep state. Nothing that they're doing is securing the margins needed to fend off the challenge from MAGA-backed, Trump-backed candidates, including Trump himself. And speaking of, if you want to know how bad things are, take a look at this. This came out today. The Democrat Senatorial Committee is having to pump money into defending the New Mexico Senate race. Gang, freaking New Mexico, a state that Biden won by 11 points. Again, this is the problem with Trump making inroads with Latinos. This is the problem for Democrats. When Trump starts siphoning off a significant portion of the Hispanic vote, you suddenly become vulnerable in states like New Mexico and Arizona and Nevada. And again, that's exactly what we're seeing with this Democrat senator here, this Martin Heinrich, who the Democrat Senatorial Committee should not be spending a dime on, apart from what they normally allocate to the guy. And by the way, has anyone been keeping up with early voting in Florida? This is the first post-2022 presidential election when Ron DeSantis officially turned Florida into a deep, deep, deep supermajority Republican state. Has anyone been keeping? Oh, look. Oh, there you go. Micah's got it right there. I mean, this is crazy. Biden won the early vote in 2020 in Florida by 10 points. He still lost Florida. He lost Florida by a few points. But it was, I mean, he won the early vote by 10 in 2020. Look at it. Look at it now. If you are listening by way of our 20 million podcast downloads, it's the Republicans up by nearly 27 points. We're seeing a near 40-point swing to the Republicans in Florida early voting. And virtually everything is red now in Florida. I mean, literally Miami-Dade is red. Freaking Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade. It's not just red. It's red by 11 points. And if you want to have a little fun, oh, yeah, there you go. I thought we had a graph on that. Look at that. Madison, Marion, Martin, Miami-Dade, Monroe, Nassau. I mean, they're all just red, 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 red. Oh, Nassau's not in yet. Sorry, forgive me. Red, red. Martin plus 52 Republican. I mean, look at these counties. They're insane. What is Okaloosa? Is that, plus 61 Republican. But even freaking Miami-Dade, all what was reliably blue Miami-Dade is now red. Again, this is what happens when Latino voters, particularly Cubans and Venezuelans, come on over to the MAGA movement. They bring Miami-Dade with them and turn Miami into a solid red city, a solid red cosmopolis. Oh, and if you want to have a little fun here, keep your eye on Duval County. Write that down. Duval County. That's a Florida county. Duval County tends to be a bellwether county for Georgia. Yes, I know. There are all kinds of strange bellwether counties that always seem to predict the winner of their own state or the election as a whole, or in the case of Duval, it predicts Georgia. Duval and Georgia have mirrored each other for every election in the last 20 years, since 2004. Even in 2020, Duval and Georgia always voted Republican, but in 2020, nope, they both went Democrat. Duval went for Biden by close to 4 points. So, I'm just saying, if there was a time for Georgia to turn blue, obviously 2020 was it, if you use this Duval bellwether. So in case you were wondering, in 2024, Duval, it's now Republican plus 5. Yep. Republican plus 5. Miami, by the way, is Republican plus 6.5. You can. Who wants to go and move to Miami? I mean, if you're looking for a city that doesn't have Democrat rot, I think we just found it. Yeah, we got a near 10-point swing to the right in Duval. So keep your eye on Duval, because obviously, I mean, if Duval is Republican plus 5, well, I don't think we're going to have a problem in Georgia if that bellwether relationship continues. So bottom line, when all said and done, whether we're looking at the Keystone State or Arizona or Nevada or New Mexico or Georgia or Florida or North Carolina, bottom line, 2024 is not 2020. All right. I want you guys to get this. The electorate of 2024 is not the electorate of 2020. The electorate of every indicator, everyone reveals that the electorate of 2024 is turning out to be very different than the electorate of 2020. 2020 was a plus 5 Democrat electorate. Biden ended up winning the popular vote by 4.5. By contrast, with the voter registration advantages and the early voting stats, right now, it looks like we're seeing either a 50-50 split electorate, which is a disaster for the Democrats. Democrats always have at least a slight advantage. Hillary Clinton went into a plus 3 Democrat electorate back in 2016. They almost always have, given the population centers of New York and Chicago and LA and San Francisco and Seattle and the like, they almost always have a slight advantage. It looks like this would be the first year where they don't. Or if they have an advantage, it's going to be like 0.3, which is basically 50-50. So it looks like we're either looking at a 50-50 split electorate, a tied electorate, or even, dare I say it, a Trump plus 2? Maybe a Trump plus 3 electorate, which would be in alignment with the Gallup voter identification survey that has predicted the popular vote, the popular vote electorate complexion, partisan complexion, to within a single point margin over the last 4 elections. So they predicted the Gallup voter self-identification survey found that 8% of the population identified as Democrat in 2008, and Obama won the popular vote by 7.2. So they were 0.8 off. In 2012, they saw a voter identification advantage for the Democrats about 5 points, and Obama ended up winning by 4.9. In 2016, it was a voter identification advantage for the Democrats by 0.3. I'm sorry, by 3. And Hillary ended up winning the popular vote by 2.1. And in 2020, it was a 5-point advantage for Democrats. Notice it's Democrat advantage. That's generally just what we have in our nation today. That doesn't necessarily translate into an electoral college advantage. But Biden ended up winning by 4.5. So the Gallup voter self-identification survey was just 0.5 off. It's the single best indicator for who's going to win the popular vote, and what the complexion of the PV, the popular vote, is going to be. The last Gallup voters self-identification survey, as I understand it, averaged out over the last several months, is Republicans +3. They've never seen this before. It's Republicans +3. Their last week, their final week of polling, as I understand, was Republicans +7. It's insane. And it was Republicans +5 or 4 the week before, then Republicans +3. But then it gets averaged out into their September findings, their August findings, which were more heavily Democratic. But when all is said and done, if it turns out that the most accurate predictive indicator for the electorate is looking at self-identification survey totals of Republicans +3, we may be looking at a Trump +2. And if that's the case, this is going to be an absolute and total and complete disaster for the Democrats. Now, I've got to reiterate again, this is not 2020. I know the questions I'm going to get tonight. I got it. You guys actually, frankly, exasperated me last week. What happened the night of November 3rd that has traumatically seared itself into our consciences. What happened the night of November 3rd, or in the early morning hours of November 4th of 2020, with the 3 a.m. Trucks dropping off barrels and barrels of Democrat ballots. That was all preceded by a Democrat juggernaut in the early voting period. Democrats had already amassed a significant advantage in voter registration, as we say, by 5 points. In a number of swing states, they had a massive advantage in absentee ballot requests and returns. And in in-person early voting, they had amassed extraordinary numbers, advantages, firewalls, as they're called. And Biden, of course, had double-digit leads in virtually all the polls for the vast majority of October. None of these factors, neither the polling, the voter registration trends, or the early voting, none of those factors are obtaining today. None of those factors are in play right now. That doesn't mean they're not going to try to pull something. They're obviously getting desperate. But what it does mean is that the prerequisites to what we all experienced on election night of 2020 are not operatives in 2024. There's nothing you can say that can contradict what I just said. The prerequisites to election night of 2020, the polling prerequisites, the voter registration prerequisites, and the early voting prerequisites are not operative in 2024. So we have to remain diligent, no question. We have to remain vigilant, no question. This is no time for complacency, absolutely. But as things stand, things are definitely moving in Trump's direction. What we want to do is we want to make sure this is the most secure vote ever, but operative from the vantage point of victory. We are winning. And so now it's an attempt to stop the desperation on the Democrats' part. It's our job to make sure we get Trump over that finish line. All right, over to you. Over to you. What do we got, Mike? And Mike, you want to come on in here and ask a few questions?
All right, sounds good.
You are in a very deep red state right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm currently in Nashville, Tennessee. So met
Nice.
with our executive producer. We're planning some awesome content for you guys, some exclusive content, and also some just general content. We've got I don't know if you noticed, our new daily show format that's going to roll out more this week. So be looking for that 7 p.m. on on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe. So let's get some questions. Will O'Toole, 2 questions. Wondering out loud if I should donate to the Montana and Ohio senators' races, or do you think that they should win? Interesting question in barbershop town meeting in Bronx. One of the customers asked Trump about alleviating the federal taxes on U.S. citizens. Trump seemed to be all in on reducing or ridding them. Do you think he can?
Oh, yeah. Well, he was talking about it's almost akin to tariffs would function as something akin to a national sales tax, for example. So if you live in a state that doesn't have an income tax, but you have a sales tax of some kind, Trump is thinking, well, what if we just make our money from tariffs? Right? What if we just tax all the imports? Everybody's going to still want to be a part of our market because our market is so massive and huge. And they'll have to adjust on their end in terms of eating the costs or trying to make up the costs in their own productive side. But it would be very interesting. Yeah, this is what I love about Trump. This is what I love about Musk. This is what I love about Vivek. So and JD, we're now bringing fresh, innovative thinking. And notice a lot of them are young. Notice a lot of them are under 45. So there is fresh, innovative, sort of fourth turning thinking. Those of you know the fourth turning, this new generational thinking after 80 years of say 4 generations kind of playing itself out. A new birth is happening. Whereas the Democrats are they're all just in this. I mean, you may have some young ones, but you look at the Democrats right now, they just look like they are fresh out of any ideas, and their ideas are getting increasingly absurd and insane. Wondering if you should donate to Montana and Ohio. I think Moreno and the fellow in Ohio and Montana are shoo-ins, to be honest with you. I will never tell you not to donate. Of course, again, you want to feel at the end on November 6th that we did everything we could have. If there's a slight bit of sense of, but I could have done more. Oh, damn, I should have done. If there's a slight bit of that is going to gnaw at you for months if the result, God forbid, is one we don't want. And again, we have to steel after November 3rd, 2020. We have to steel ourselves for that. We'll be talking about that over the next 2 weeks about what happens if the worst case scenario does play out. I don't think it's as bad as people think, but I'll play it out for you. I'll be interested what you guys think. So I'll never tell you not to donate. Go for it. I think you'll be. I think it's money well spent. I think they're winning tickets, definitely. Again, we just tend not to vote split. We don't split ticket anymore. That's why I think Bob Casey's going down. I think McCormick is rocking. I think McCormick is pulling a Youngkin in Pennsylvania. We'll see, but it looks like that's what's happening right now. I think Kerry Lake could do the same thing against Gallego in Arizona. So, but in terms of safe seats, West Virginia, Ohio, Montana, they're going red. I think every election prediction, every forecasting model has all 3 of them pretty safely going. Or they might be wishy-washy on Ohio right now, but Sherrod Brown is going down. Market here.
Gang, just to remind you all to support, if you guys want to support this channel, we have 3 different levels of support that you can go on in the link below. and I'll post the link right here on the screen. It's also in the description if you're on Rumble or if you're on YouTube. We've already got a bunch of people in our private live stream where we will go very shortly to a VIP live stream where Dr. Steve can get a little bit more in depth on some of the trickier questions that YouTube might not like.
Yeah.
Yes. And the reason we have that private live stream again, guys, is because we want to answer all the questions that you have, but sometimes YouTube gets a little finicky with some of the rules that it has, especially around election season. For some reason, it's kind of weird. But again, go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. You can support the channel, support Dr. Steve, and also we have a bunch of exclusive content for you guys and awesome trainings and path forward. We have trainings on the election integrity and how to shore up your community and your family and train them and yourselves to survive this election season and thrive in it. So we are really excited to have all of that for you guys. 3 different levels. Just go check it out, and you can support the channel that way because we are fully demonetized on YouTube. So we will get to another question then, and this is a preview of what our Q&A is like on our VIP live stream. So Vlad the Impaler, one of our regulars, asks questions all the time. How many refugees do you think we'll see from Cuba in light of the electrical system collapsing?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh my.
Depends on which president.
Exactly. Great question. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, again, it's just you're dealing with third world failures when all's said and done, and unfortunately, yeah, Cuba's one of them. They've been one for decades now. So as long as Democrats are in power, those people outside of America are going to feel empowered to invade us when all's said and done, right? These are not immigrants; these are invaders in the end. The difference between an immigrant and invader is an immigrant has permission to come to our country. My wife got permission to come to the country. My wife had to jump through all kinds of hoops, legal hoops, not jump through hoops. She had to qualify and go through all kinds of legal procedures in order to get her green card. She despises this notion that somehow, some way, people who did not get any legal permission whatsoever to enter our country are suddenly now lauded as the most morally upstanding human beings on the planet. She just doesn't understand it. The Dream Act and all this crap. She's just like, what the hell? We had to go through all kinds of headaches for her to get a citizenship, and they just jumped to the front of the line and then come in and then jump over the guardrails and come on in without any permission at all. And then Democrats turn around and say, oh, glorious, how wonderful. If you show up at JFK without your passport, what do you think they're going to say to you? So it's insane. And it hopefully enough people have had it with that insanity. It looks like it. Right now, the electorate looks like a lot of people have had it with this insanity.
Charles Altman asks, did you see where the mayor of Hamtramck gave Trump a letter of thanks? Will this help Trump with the Muslim vote in various states?
Yeah, it's primarily in Michigan. That's where you have the most dense population of Arab Americans, Muslim Americans. Hamtramck, Dearborn. Hamtramck has an all Muslim city council, majority Muslim city council. They're all Democrats. They voted for Biden by 70% back in 2020. That apparently is not happening. Now, it's anecdotal. We don't have any outside of this endorsement from this mayor. And you also saw Trump's tweet today. I think it was a tweet or it was Truth Social, where he talked about Liz Cheney appearing with Kamala Harris. And he turned it into a viscerally anti-Arab, anti-Muslim tweet on their part, saying Kamala Harris was hanging out with this pro-warmongering Cheney who wants to, bomb and obliterate more Arabs in the Middle East. I was like, whoa. Again, no other politician would ever do anything like this. This is what makes Trump just so dangerous to the establishment of the system. The word on the street via CNN is Muslims are not voting for Biden. I'm sorry, Kamala. That's word on the street. Again, it's anecdotal. We don't have any direct evidence outside of the primaries where Biden actually lost Dearborn. He lost Hamtramck to what did they have for their write-in? It wasn't undecided. It was a other or something like that. They wrote in someone else, something else, some concept. I think it was like undecided. And it was a protest vote against Biden. And at the very least, what they see is they see Trump as somebody who's not going to be bombing the Middle East if he becomes president. At the very least, that's what they see. So Kamala is in trouble in Michigan because there's a few 100,000 Arab Americans and Muslim Americans who are not apparently from what they're saying, even on CNN, are not going to be voting for her. And I don't know how she wins Michigan with that. Now, again, Michigan is the one state that has the creepy, unbleached voter rolls, where they seem to have more voters than citizens over the age of 18. It's the one state among the seven, the big seven swing states, that did not clean up their rolls after 2020, as I understand it. Because Gretchen Whitmer is a vile, corrupt. Well, I'll leave it at that. So we'll see if the extra 100, 200,000, whatever it is, voter rolls and any corruption that comes from that can make up for it. Again, we'll see. It's hard because now it's not 2020. You don't just automatically get a mail-in ballot like everyone got back in 2020. You have to request it now, even in Michigan. So we know how many people are requesting. That's the key. And I'm just not seeing the numbers there for them to do the shenanigans like they did in 2020. But we'll have to see if, again, even if they did, if the depletion of the Arab American and Muslim vote will balance that out.
I think we have our final question that we're going to use to transition to our private live stream. Again, if you guys just go click on the link below, we will answer this question from Guy Brandow. And the question is, I heard China is going to invade Taiwan. I thought they were playing the long game. I'm worried. And also I heard that the election results will not be called by election night. Will Trump still win despite the delay? Is there any hope?
All right, well, that's a good question. That's a good question.
It's a great question, and we are going to get to that on our private live stream. Again, gang, Guy, we're going to get to that. But if you just go to fight.turleytalks.com/join, you will be able to see all the options for joining our Courageous Conservatives Club, where you get access to a ton of exclusive content, more access to Dr. Steve, and just some great fellowship with a large community. We have 5,000 members, and we would love for you to be a part of that. We have about 5,000 people on this live stream. So we would love if just 10% of you were to just come over, and that would be a great win for everyone here. So we can't wait to see you over on that private live stream, and we will transition over there in 30 seconds.
Thanks, guys.